Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and if you're new to the channel, I appreciate you coming and checking it out. What we have for you today is we have a viewer named Victor who sent in an email about his encounter from when he was on Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Now, he has seen a juvenile Bigfoot when he was hunting, and I'm going to go ahead and give you that story. And if you guys like the story, make sure you hit that like button, leave me comments, all that good stuff. Let's get to it. Alright, before we get into the story, let me go ahead and show you this location. You guys can see Fort Bragg right here. And as you guys might know, or maybe you don't know, Fort Bragg is in North Carolina. Now I'm going to go ahead and zoom into the area where he had his encounter. All this land to the west of Fort Bragg is part of the military base also. He had his encounter right up in this area though, right up in here. Right there. So as you guys listen to the story, you guys can go ahead and follow along and see for your own where this incident occurred and where he's talking about when he's talking about driving up the road, things like that. This is exactly where it was. Once again, Victor, thanks for sending in your story. We really do appreciate it. Now that I showed you that location, here is Victor's story. After my sighting, I didn't tell my story that often because I didn't know how to tell it or who to tell it to. But I knew I saw something strange in December 1995. Even my wife didn't believe my encounter. It took 16 years before I could honestly say that I saw a juvenile Bigfoot. In 2011, I was watching the Finding Bigfoot show, and they showed a photo of what they believed was a juvenile Bigfoot. These were known as the Jacobs photos. A hunter had captured pictures of a juvenile Bigfoot on a game camera in September 2007. A cold chill went up my spine and I started to tremble. For the first time, I knew what I had seen that day in December 1995. So, here is my story. My love of hunting has pushed me to get up early in the morning and venture into the woods in search of a big buck or a doe. Well, it was the fall of 1995, and that desire led me once again on my quest for a big buck. I was stationed at Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, North Carolina since March 1993 and have been studying the hunting scene around the Fort Bragg area. I had obtained military-style maps that detailed every valley and hilltops in the training area. I had studied aerial photographs in search of a spot to hunt. As I looked through the aerial photographs, I found an area off the beaten path. I always use my senses to, quote-unquote, talk to me when looking at maps or photos. You could call it my sixth sense. I selected X-Ray 1 training area and thought this would be a great place to hunt. It had a valley that led to a water source and had plenty of cover. I could set my stand up and look across the valley far and wide. I chose this place to get away from all the other hunters in the area. The evening before my hunt, I meticulously prepared my equipment. My stand was checked and loaded in my truck. My 30-06 was checked and cased. Ammo was ready, food, water, maps, and compass. The list went on until it was all loaded and ready to go. The anticipation had made me restless and I forced myself to sleep. My alarm clock went off and my first thought was, damn, this is too early to get out of bed. I drove to the ranger station on Fort Bragg and signed out. For safety reasons, Fort Bragg kept track of how many hunters were out in the training areas. I drove to my hunting area and had an eerie feeling driving down the firebreak. It was very dark. My headlights seemed to cut through the darkness only so far. The headlights shined on the trees, giving me a sense of giants standing there looking at me. I shrugged it off and drove to the spot using my map. The weather report had predicted a pleasant morning, not too cold, no winds or rain. I gathered my gear and estimated the location of the valley. As any good soldier hunter should do, I shot my azimuth in the direction of the valley and measured the distance I had to travel. I found my valley and looked for a tree to climb using a small flashlight with a red lens. My equipment lay around the base of the tree, and I set up my tree climber. At this time, I'm being very quiet as sounds travel through the woods. I'm now settled in about 26 feet high on a tree with my rifle across my lap and just waiting for that magic moment. The sunrise is starting to come out, and I can feel the heat from the sun's rays. That was a welcomed feeling. Everything is quiet and beautiful. I started looking at the sunlight traveling across the forest floor as the sun is rising to my right. As the sunlight crosses in front of my stand, I see movement off to the front but below. I see this small 4 to 5 foot thing rear up as if being burned by the sun's rays. My eyes are wide open. The creature stands up from the ground with raised arms and takes 3 or 4 steps, lunging forward to all fours. It runs in a goalpost pattern, football term, for about 30 to 40 yards. It was smooth and fast. I could see its muscles flex and contract. I got the impression that it had overslept and was late for school. Its hair was short, 5 inches in length, and shiny black. I couldn't see his face from the angle it was running. It had no distinguishable neck or ears. It did not smell, nor did it have a tail. Not one thought came to me about raising my rifle. I thought, what the hell was that? I looked down at the spot where it had gotten up. I felt this overwhelming sense of fear come over me. The hairs at the back of my neck stand up. I'm frozen in my seat, 26 feet up. The juvenile had been about 6 feet from where I had laid my equipment. As soon as I regained my composure, I got the hell out of that tree so fast that 26 feet seemed like inches. I ran back to my truck, forgot using the compass and map, and drove out of there, leaving a cloud of dust. I did not check for tracks because of all the fallen oak leaves that covered the ground. I didn't check for hair either. I was too damn scared. I am not boasting. I was 34 years old on active duty with combat experience, a 30-06 semi-auto rifle on hand, and you would have a real hard time trying to kick my ass. I left with a fear that outweighed Scud missiles flying overhead and landing danger close. I have asked myself why it didn't detect me. Well, I wash my clothes and shower with scent-free soap. I use scent-free deodorizer. I also spray my clothes with earth-scented spray. I rattle-proofed my tree climber with plastic sleeves, and I practiced climbing trees quietly in my backyard. I wore good-fitting rubber boots to better feel the ground to help me be as quiet as possible as I traveled through the woods. As I faced the tree to set up, the juvenile was on the opposite side. The only answer I have is that this juvenile was in a deep sleep. I never reported the incident to the ranger station. I had no clue what the hell I saw. A demon? An alien? Some kind of land creature? Or some crazy animal I've never seen before? Now, I have been hunting since I was 15 years old and would go deep into the woods. I have seen all sorts of animals in the wild. I have seen a red wolf while hunting. I couldn't tell you what I saw. I told my story to my wife, and she smirked in disbelief. So this incident was buried in the back of my mind for years. I told the story to my family about 2008 while we were gathered around telling ghost stories and the strange things we've seen. My sister looked at me as if wanting to believe and then said, "Okay, who's next?" So this story went back to the memory closet. The opportunity to tell my story came up again in 2011. This time it was at work and my coworkers were telling ghost stories. I thought, okay, here we go again. I told my story to those who were present and all were quiet afterwards. One person asked me to draw what I saw. I draw the quote-unquote thing on paper and gave it to them. Nothing more was said, and the week went on to its end. On my next day back to work, I saw the creature that I had drawn pasted on my wall locker. I was surprised at first, and then I realized the joke was on me. I laughed and shook my head. I left the picture on my wall locker. But this story is not over yet. On July 2011, one of my friends and coworker recommended I research it on the internet, which I did, and I came across a story of a soldier stationed at Fort Bragg around 1989. He and a group of soldiers were sent into the woods. They were getting ready to leave the area, and one of the soldiers ran off to the woods to relieve himself. He came across a sandy area and found two sets of tracks, one set of large footprints and a second set of smaller childlike footprints. Chills went down my spine. The soldier stated he wore a 9.5 size, and these footprints were big. It was the childlike footprints that caught my attention. Okay, so here is that report that Victor was speaking about that happened in 1989. I found it on the BFRO website. It is report 18680. Year 1989, August 9th, secure military base, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Observed. On August 9th, 1989, I was in the Army and on a training exercise with 4 other soldiers at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Before sunrise that morning, a C-130H crashed on an earthen landing strip about a quarter mile from my location. Approximately 1 hour after sunrise, I walked about 100 feet away from the others to relieve myself. I stopped in a small clearing that was mostly shallow sand with small patches of grass scattered around and surrounded by pine trees. As I looked down at the ground, I noticed a set of very large, human-looking footprints, barefoot, 5 toes on each foot, heel, and an arch. I wear size 9.5 boots, and the prints were twice as long as mine and maybe 2 inches wider. I looked more closely at the footprints and noticed a smaller set, the size of a 3 or 4-year-old human, the side of the larger ones. I followed the prints from one side of the clearing to the other, and they disappeared into the pine trees on both sides. We were moving out as soon as I returned, so we were short on time, and I, of course, was ridiculed when I asked the others to go take a look. And here is the follow-up investigation report by BFRO investigator Tim Stroud. I spoke with the witness on May 29, 2009. I found him to be very credible and consistent in his reporting. He observed approximately 10 to 15 very large prints that were accompanied by smaller prints in a 100 square foot area. The tracks indicated that the animals were headed towards a more densely wooded area. The prints were about 1 inch deep in soft sand that was on top of a harder ground. Upon further investigation, he noted that within the wooded area there were overground bunkers that were no longer used. He surmised that it would have provided excellent shelter. There were entrance doors on the backs of the bunkers and slits on the front so that the soldiers could observe the exterior. The witness described them as cave-like structures. He stated that someone couldn't tell that they were there unless they were walking right on top of them, as they were now covered with trees and vegetation. He feels that the prints were real and that no one would be out in the middle of a military installment faking prints that may not have ever been found. I spent several hours in the general area of the sighting of Fort Bragg and feel that this would be suitable habitat for an undiscovered North American ape. I had a flashback. My heart was racing. Did I see a small Bigfoot? This is how I came to know. It is now November 2011, and it had been several months since I told my story to my coworkers, and I am watching an episode of Finding Bigfoot on Animal Planet. On this episode, they show a picture of what researchers believe is a juvenile Bigfoot. My eyes are wide open. The hairs at the back of my neck stand up. I'm frozen to my couch seat. Oh my God, it is exactly what I saw years ago. I compared the pictures to what I drew, and both matched up pretty close to what I saw. I now know I saw a juvenile Bigfoot in the fall of 1995. Thank you, WILLSTAR, for asking me to tell my story. Please feel free to use my name. I don't care. It took 16 years for me to recognize what I saw that day. I love how you use Google Maps to show your audience. Alright everybody, I found the pictures that Victor was talking about that he saw on Finding Bigfoot, and I've also found a newspaper article about the incident, and I'm going to read that to you also. So let's go ahead and show you those pictures while I go ahead and read you this article. Ridgeway, Pennsylvania. It's furry, walks on all fours, doesn't have a tail, and is apparently not a bear. The only thing certain at the moment is that the images caught by an Elk County hunter have stirred new debate on the internet about the existence of Bigfoot, or Sasquatch as believers call the creature of folklore. Rick Jacobs, the hunter, said he planted the stationary tree camera in the Allegheny National Forest about 115 miles northeast of Pittsburgh to try to find a handsome buck. Instead, on September 16th, the camera caught images of an unusual creature, he said. We couldn't figure out what they were, Jacob said. I've been hunting for years and I've never seen anything like this. The hunter said that after a week of trying to decipher what had walked past his camera lens, he contacted the Bigfoot Research Organization. Stories about Bigfoot are part of North American folklore, and some believe the bipedal creature inhabits many parts of the United States and Canada. Scientists, however, say there is no concrete proof that such a creature exists and brush it off as a combination of legend and hoaxes. Images posted on dozens of websites have generated discussions about Jacob's creature, as the unknown four-legged animal has become known among Bigfoot believers. The exact location of the sighting has not been publicized to avoid people flocking to the area. Paul Maheda of the Bigfoot group said he has been to the northwest Pennsylvania area and done some analysis. My impression is that it is not a bear, Maheda said. It appears to be a primate-like animal. In my opinion, it appears to be a juvenile Sasquatch. Alright, so there you go. Thank you, Victor, for sending that story in. We really do appreciate it. Victor's Bigfoot encounter with a juvenile Sasquatch on Fort Bragg Military Base in North Carolina. What do you guys think about that story? Leave me some comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on it. Also, if you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button for me. You guys know that YouTube likes when you guys hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. What are you waiting for? If you guys like these videos, make sure you click on the link that just popped up, and that will take you to a playlist with a whole bunch of these other types of videos. That's where we're going to leave it. Make sure you guys always remember, where there is a WILLSTAR, there is definitely a way. And we will talk to you guys later. Take care.